welcome to the MVP Show. This week we're speaking with none other than Andrew Lee, all the way from South Australia. Gotta say, I like Andrew. I've worked with him, and he's doing some great things in the whole PCF PowerApps component framework at the moment. So why don't you sit back, listen as we discuss his life and journey as an MVP, and also have a bit of a robust discussion around the PowerApps component framework. Full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/117. Now let's get on with the show. Hello, Andrew, and welcome to the MVP Show.
Thanks very much for having me, Mark.
Mate, good to catch up with you again. You know, we've worked together, we've, shall we say, played together, and of course, you're an MVP as well. How are things going?
Yeah, really good, thanks, mate. Yeah, really good. Like you said, we have worked together, and it's good catching up with you again. And so things have been really well. Pretty busy down under. Yep.
So you're in Adelaide, Australia, and tell us a bit about why you love living in Adelaide and about the loves of your life.
Oh, okay. So Adelaide, like you said, is in South Australia. It's a predominantly known as a wine region as well as a manufacturing region. It's actually pretty chill down here. There's a population of about 1.5 million people. I love the lifestyle here. It's just it's like a not a huge, busy, bustling city, but it's just big enough, I think. And love the restaurant culture, coffee culture. It's great.
Carry on, the loves of your life.
Yeah, I got as you know, I got two little girls, 8 and 3, and they are certainly a handful, but they're very, very, very fun. We just got back from a trip down to Singapore and Malaysia just to see the in-laws and that. So yeah, really, really having a great time with them.
Okay, so when I say the love of your life, I expect your wife to kind of feature in some way.
She'll kill me, won't she? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Shirley, of course. Yeah, so we just celebrated our 12th anniversary, actually.
Wow,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
Mate, I didn't realise you had 2 years on me there.
That's really? Good. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Very good, very good. So, kind of, what do you get up to for a day job?
So I'm currently employed as an associate director at KPMG within their Microsoft go-to-market team, and that's predominantly a technical pre-sales role. So essentially means I've got a foot in technology, and I work very closely with vendors, clients, business development people. But I've predominantly come from a consulting background. I've sort of spent the last 18 years in IT, and yeah, it's sort of taken me all sorts of places now.
So tell us a bit about that journey. Like, well, first of all, how did you end up becoming an MVP? How long have you been an MVP, and what's the experience?
Right. Okay. So, look, I was awarded the MVP, I think it was in January or February last year. That was an interesting exercise. I wasn't really expecting that, but I mean, I've been working obviously really closely with you, Mark, and I think we spent a couple of years or 2 or 3 years working together very closely. I think I reported into you at that time, and I was thinking, I was at that stage of my life, and I was thinking, well, what do I really want to do with my career, and where do I want to go with things? And look, I was really active in the community already, and I think that's when I talked to you about, what's the MVP program like? And I think you ended up nominating me. And so, that sort of got the ball rolling, and sort of one thing led to another, and started doing more and more stuff with the community, and that's how I got to become an MVP. Yeah.
Okay. So, kind of tell us, what are the big things that you do in the community in Australia? I know you're active in the overall user group scene for the country, and tell us a bit about that and what else.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got an active role in terms of the Dynamics 365 user group in Australia. Co-chair that with yourself, Mark, and we run user groups in I think pretty much every mainland state of Australia, along with our chapter leads who are doing a fantastic job around that. Also have a number of things that a couple of initiatives that I've got right now, and that's around GitHub and having open source projects. And I've got about 7 or 8 different projects, mainly around the new PowerApps component framework and just around user experience, because I think that's a pretty important area that we should all be playing in.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So you've really, I was at BizApp Summit recently, and your name or your technology was on stage. I don't know if you're aware of that, but there's definitely some screenshots of what you've done around PCF. Tell us what are your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts based on what you've done thus far on the PowerApps component framework?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think in terms of what PowerApps component framework gives us, it gives us a lot more control over the overall look and feel and the whole user experience. And I think that's something that's been lacking in a lot of ways with Dynamics and the whole PowerApps suite. I think this gives us a really easy and intuitive way with a very low barrier to entry to making a really good user experience. And so I've got a C# sort of background, so I could sort of pick things up pretty quickly. But I was completely new to the PowerApps component framework, and I thought this might be a really good exercise for me to learn more about TypeScript, a little bit about React, that sort of stuff, and then share my learnings, and then also produce some open source projects that to get other people really excited about, user experience with the Power Platform. Yeah.
So do you see ultimately that the canvas that you have to work on? Let's look model driven side of the house to start with. Do you see that potentially, apart from the left-hand navigation and the top nav bar, that the entire rest of the screen becomes real estate that you can design, create on with PCF? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the world's your oyster. It gives you a lot more functionality. It gives you a lot more ways you can manipulate things in a very, I think, very consistent, supported fashion. I think if you've got sort of some web development background, I think that skill set translates directly to being able to manipulate that canvas. So I think it's perfect. I mean, web devs do this on a sort of daily basis. They create custom apps and everything that look fantastic. And I think that now we're finally starting to get the advantages of those sorts of things into PowerApps, which is great. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about should I say that PCF is replacing web resources? Would that be a fair justification?
I have said that on a number of occasions when I've been sort of speaking publicly about that. I mean, it's not 100% true. I think there are probably still use cases for web resources, but I think pretty much
do you have any off the top of your head?
I don't have any on the top of my head.
Okay, that's cool. Carry on. That's cool.
Yeah, I spoke to Hemant, the product manager and he's suggesting that there probably are still a few scenarios out there where you'd still want to have web resources, but like everything that I use web resources for, I could easily convert into a custom control for sure. So I think you're going to see less and less of that. I think exactly.
Okay. So React.js, has been a lot of calls for this to be part of PCF. There's been some recent announcements. Can you kind of walk us through those, and what do you think the implication is going to be?
You're absolutely right. So React is now officially supported by the PowerApps component framework. Means we've got a path forward for building out React controls. Working with a couple of individuals in the community around getting some blogs up on how to easily build React controls. And I think and there was also the announcement that I think Office Fabric is now coming as well. So that'll give us a very consistent UI, very Office-like look and feel. So we don't have to start from scratch around that. So I think that's fantastic. More and more libraries are coming on board. We can obviously add our own libraries, but it's just good to see Microsoft supporting this straight out the box.
Okay, so tell us, what do you see the future of PCF's going to be?
I think reusability is going to be a big thing. Not having to start things from scratch. I think there'll be a lot more opportunities for people to build controls and commercialize them, like as in sell them on an app store and that sort of stuff. And I think there'll be a lot easier ways you can just package and deploy just individual controls rather than just complete solution files.
So do you think we'll get to the point where we can create, if you like, Telerik type controls that you could sell as a component, and other software devs and or customers could use those components within their applications?
100%, yeah, 100%. I think we're definitely in this sort of Telerik sort of situation. We have a library of very neat controls which have a small licensing fee to use. Obviously, people have invested quite a lot of time to make these things look really beautiful. They'll add tremendous amount of value to customers and deployments. I definitely see a really good market for that sort of stuff. If not, just built into other accelerators. So if you've got an accelerator out there with a custom control, you package it as part of that and make that an offering.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So where are you on your journey with PCF?
I've just got back from holiday, so I'm just catching up with the team and also seeing what's going on with React. I'd like to get a couple of controls out there, open source. It's very simple React controls. I've got a couple of ideas in mind, and just sort of see where that takes us really, and see if we can build some hype and momentum around PCF.
Okay. So if people want to kind of get involved with that, do you have a Discord account that they can jump onto and, you can collaborate?
That's not a bad idea, having a Discord server. I'm not sure there's getting that much at the moment. Primarily, the PCF forums is probably the best place for conversations. And I think everyone's sort of been rallying around the PCF community group. I think Hemant's got some really good stickies on there, sticky threads, where you can get all of the resources, basically everything you need to know to get started. I think Guido's also got a gallery that and it's a fantastic gallery. He's doing a great job maintaining it too. So you want to see what other people are doing, definitely head over to the gallery.
Yeah, I think it's critically important, for technologies like this to really kind of get a wider buy-in audience. Sometimes, I go up and I see kind of code bases that are 100% designed for developers to understand. So even right now, if you're on the react.js.org site, you've got a simple component and it looks pretty similar to some HTML, JavaScript type code that I see, and then says, a stateful component, an application down to, but none of it it doesn't really give me the visuals. And often, they're kind of, I feel, the visuals are so important for kind of unlocking people's imagination about what's possible when they can't read code and kind of visualize how that's going to look. And, the nuances of visuals is that it's visual, it's why we have books with written words in it is quite different than a photo being taken. And, a photo can sometimes represent, 1,000, 2,000 words. They say a picture paints 1,000 words. And sometimes, like when I look at portraiture photography, I'm like blown away how sometimes a photo can capture so much emotion, meaning, passion, power, all these different elements, and it's yet a still photo. And I just think that I hope that in any of these libraries that are being built out, there's a lot of, if you like, visuals showing more than, a hello world example, but that are real. I want to see the sexy, sizzly part of PCF. The stuff where people look at a UI and go, I'll use a polite word, Far out. That's incredible, right? Like, man, I want this. Like this is making the technology like super sexy, and I hope that we're going to get not just, if you like, the hardcore devs, getting into this, but there's going to be a mashup between them and, real rich UI designers and UX designers, in that pool. And let's see some real, wow type applications. Because I just think that, some of the most successful applications that, I work with on the iPhone and stuff is they're simple to use, but they're so intuitive in their design, and they're pleasurable to look at, right? They're not hard on the eye. And sometimes we see so much software design that's literally hard on the eye, right?
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. And I think you're right. Seeing it visually, seeing is believing. And once you see something really sexy, and it's not just, a really sexy control you want to see, you want to make things easier for your customers, right? Like, for instance, if we want to dive into a record, that might be several clicks away. If we could build a control that has all the right information there, it shows up dynamically and just looks beautiful. You've reduced the number of clicks. It looks pleasant to the eye. I think it's just a win-win all the way around, So
yeah. How is usability? You mentioned usability. How's that been tied in to this, component framework?
Yeah, I think I mean they've published a number of the out-of-the-box controls that come out of the model-driven app. Now you can obviously take that and extend it to make it a lot more usable. And I think that's where, just to pick up on your point, where we can get some CX guys, some customer experience guys, user experience guys to cast their eye over it and say, well, how could we make this experience a bit better? Well, now we can actually do that technically as well. Whereas before we would actually have to manipulate that control in probably some unsupported fashion. Now there's definitely a way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I'm just looking on the Telerik site, and I go into some their reporting area, and then they've got barcode reports, and they've got every single barcode type, UPCA, PostNet, EAN8, all. But the thing is, what I love is that right back to QR codes, of course, as well, but it's giving that kind of visual representation. So organizations, companies can go, man, this applies to my industry or my, I've seen this type of stuff before, and what I can have it in my technology now. I think it's going to really open some interesting doors for the way people work with this technology, and also make requests of whether it's their partners or ISVs, and creating really beautiful visual applications.
Yeah. Look, I mean, speaking of beautiful and using it in industry, I saw a control recently. It was actually built out by Ung Kang in New Zealand. He did a really good control around connections, and it just showed like sort of a spider chart. You've got that person in the middle, and these are all the connections to the people and their connections to other people, right? And it just represented that. It was just beautiful. I think it was all done in React as well. Yeah, look, I think that kind of use case, I never would even imagine that, and that sort of stuff is coming to fruition now.
Yeah. I don't know what the APIs are like on LinkedIn, but a use case I'd love to see is a component done where you could credential with your LinkedIn credential and perhaps build out like a bubble map or something like that, or a spider chart, like you're saying, of kind of where are your connections? Like, could I look at them from a geography point of view? Where are they in the world? Could I look at them from are they like me? In other words, they're in the same technology or industry area. I just think, man, to visualize that and see kind of, what are your tight ties? In other words, who's interacting with your content more than others? I think there'd be some brilliant visual representation of that data set, that's kind of, it's my data set. It's like based on me and my connections. I think it'd be pretty powerful, like for salespeople even to know and understand. I think there's some real interesting use cases. That the question is, though, how open is LinkedIn's API, and whether they let you kind of report or consume some type of data around that to kind of give you those insights. Probably not.
I agree. Like, social analytics, I think, is going to be a huge space. I think it's got applications beyond sales. There's probably like politics, for instance, and campaigning, that sort of stuff. I think there's definitely really good use cases around that, and getting access to those APIs. I think that's really going to open things up.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I don't know if these folks are out there perhaps listening on the call, but it'd be so, I'd love to connect with people that have really started drilling into some third-party APIs, like, let's just take Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn as the first three, and go, I don't just want the standard, oh, this person tweeted this, and it was that type of a sentiment, and that, oh, that's beautiful. Let's put that aside. Let's actually look at influence metrics, really based on not like numbers, but actual engagement. I reckon engagement metrics are something that is nobody's really doing it yet, that you can really get insights on the engagement, not on the number of connections or the number of likes, because at the end of the day, I just think likes and thumbs up and stuff are really, I don't know, benign. They're the kind of the simplest, most not thought out part of engagement. I think, though, when people comment, probably comment is the biggest, because even if I looked at the order of importance when I kind of validate engagement in the community, I think a like and a share is like, okay, but it's kind of like it took a click, right? Maybe two. But a comment is a totally different thing. A comment makes me stop and think, what has this person said? Is there something that's worth, drilling into in a bit more detail here? It's not just an aggregate number of you've got 50 likes on that post or something like that. It makes me stop. It makes me read. It makes me want to engage. And I just think that, engagement is the future, right? Connection. So, yeah. Sorry,
what about sort of? No, I think that's actually a really relevant point. Like in terms of like analytics and applying sentiment analysis on commentary, I think that's really powerful. I know Microsoft has done a lot around that, especially with the customer insights and the old Microsoft social engagement.
Yeah, it's dead though now, right?
It's been replaced, but yeah.
Man, heck, I've got to stop saying that. I'm getting a reputation for saying everything that's got the nail in the coffin. No, the thing is that Market Insights, which is the new product, and I've been on the back end program of that for maybe 6 months now, is although Microsoft social engagement was kind of, let's say, the team, the resources, etc., that thing is fully dead, right? As in, like, the whole idea of not aggregating, individually, following and harvesting tweets and posts and things like that. Good night, that's gone. I think they've sunset that, and I think what the new product is coming out is going to be much more tangibly insightful, but if you like, doesn't go down to that degree. It's definitely not a Hootsuite or a what's the other big one that I used to have it.
Yeah, can't think of it now. Yeah,
the kind of social media where you can kind of pick out individual posts much more than what you get with Twitter's tweet deck, but kind of allows you to segment your audience and stuff and engage with them. So
you can still directly engage with these guys as well via the same channel, like via social media.
So you won't be on the new tool that Microsoft's bringing out. No, that's gone. This is about aggregate data. Very, very interesting. I had the guy on my show, and what was really interesting is that this also includes telemetry data coming from Microsoft's browser footprint around the world.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So very interesting insights, right? Because, you imagine the telemetry being pulled across a browser around how people are interacting with the content on screen. No PII information, of course, but it's going to give some incredible insights about, what are people into now? Why are they? What is the influencing? What were the triggers that got them here? Where did they exit? But what does that mean around my product or my industry or my data set? So, yeah, very interesting.
I mean, I've seen really interesting tie-ins with marketing automation where they produce heat maps of where you're actually clicking or what you're looking at on that particular screen. I think that's just really fascinating how they do that.
Yeah. So that's more for like, UI design and stuff, or, or user experience design. This is more for, if I was a big brand, let's say I was Nike, and I wanted to understand how I was doing against Adidas, right? Or Puma. It would give me an understanding of what people are engaging with, not just of mine, but my competitors, and kind of what was triggering those outcomes. So I think, pretty powerful story. But mate, listen to this. We're crunching through some time. Is there any questions that you wanted to ask me? You kind of intimated that you might have had one or two.
Yeah, look, I did want to have a chat to you. I think we covered off PCF, and I think that was really interesting. I think I was listening to the recent YouTube live stream that you did with Steve Mordew, and I thought that was really interesting around your conversations around CDS and the power portals that are coming out. What do you see as sort of the future of customer engagement and self-service? With especially with the Power platform, where do you see that heading?
Okay, so if we talk about customer engagement, right, which we're talking about sales, are you talking about sales like Dynamics 365 CE customer engagement for sales? Let's take that for a starting point, right? I think somebody within the engineering team needs to sit down and say, why are we still got a sales module that was architected based on 20-year-old thinking, right? Sales has moved on, yet it's built on 20-year-old technology. Like when first CRMs came out, it's really not changed. We've got leads, we've got opportunities, accounts, contacts. Of course, any system's going to need those to identify industry, or, organizations and people, those that kind of have blood, breathe, oxygen type thing. But the thing is that sales has changed so dramatically. Things like the product catalog and quotes, orders, invoices. In my experience, 16 years of doing this, not many people, not many projects have I been on where we've needed to touch any of that type of stuff. In fact, I can count on no fingers the amount of times I've used the product catalog on a project, right? So I just think that needs a reinvention. Like the way people sell nowadays, like, often it's not just a one-off sale. It's a sale that is kind of in the SaaS world we live in. It is kind of you receive money over a protracted period of time. So is it a sale at a pointed time that is kind of atomized over a period? Like, how is that represented on an opportunity? How does an opportunity handle those type of scenarios where more than ever, the days of a single salesperson are now just not it, and I know we've got team ownership, and you can put the actors that are involved in the sale, as part of that. I just think the concept of opportunity needs to be 100% overhauled, and the concept of lead needs to be 100% overhauled. There's a lot of people say lead's not needed. I think it is but I don't know, I'd call it a lead. I call it a cleanup zone. It's an area for data cleansing of a bunch of records before I move them into an active pursue state type thing. But then the other thing, you take something like the contact record. We live in a world, right, of social, where people have LinkedIn connections, LinkedIn profiles, Facebook profiles, Twitter handles, Pinterest. There's a whole raft of them. Show me out of the box where social is represented on a contact record. We still have fax numbers. Who the hell uses fax? Like, it's kind of like nobody is kind of like, oh, don't touch this because that was always there. And it's kind of like, come on, evolve.
I feel like I've opened a can of worms here.
Yeah. I just think sometimes people are so kind of in their box, they see their four walls around them, and they don't poke their head out and go, shit, what is going on in the world? We're floating down a river and being left behind in our little box rather than kind of jumping out and really creating what's next. Now, I don't know, perhaps it's a product that's, like a cash cow, which is you don't do much, you just sell it and it brings in the funds. Perhaps it's in that state for them. But I think there's, an opportunity to really do something different from a customer engagement perspective using all the smart tools that we have now. And it's not just, the insight stuff are great little tack-ons around the edges, but I think there needs to be so much more around the core and enabling scenarios in a modern world that we live in when it comes to customer engagement, sales, and the like.
And that's a really good point there. And I think that customers have so many different personas now, and they engage with us on so many different channels. And the challenge we used to have, Mark, when we were deploying together, if you remember, was, they're customers, and they have different sorts of relationship with us as an organization, or the customer's organization. They might be a ratepayer, they might be also a contractor to that company. There's all these different connections. How do we represent that? And I think that's always been a bit of a challenge. Out of the box.
Yeah,
at least
agreed.
Anyway.
Agreed. I just think they need to get some. I like Clay is on the the user interface side of things, and I think he brings a good element to it. I just think they can't get enough, if you like, people with real modern design expertise that go, how do we make this an app on par with a consumer app? It's that awesome, right? People just, I was chatting with Neil Benson earlier this week, and he came up with a brilliant thing. I don't want people to adopt my technology. I want them to become addicted to it, right? Now, you imagine a business application that was addictive.
Like Shazam,
Right? Yeah, but that's a consumer app, right? But imagine it, imagine a business app that was in other words, it was so good, it was so amazing that people loved it. They couldn't get, I love the technology, but I'm talking about as day-to-day work. I love it from a implementation, how it can transform organizations unbelievably, especially anyone going from manual processes. But what I think is that, if people could think, have set the bar at addiction rather than adoption, I think we start to change the game to a whole new level.
Magic. Yeah, exactly.
Mate, we're over time. You're the longest running podcast I have done on the MVP show.
It was really interesting, yeah.
32 minutes. It makes it different when you know the other person really well, I feel. And the other thing I just find with podcasting is that if you're basically, just in a Q&A scenario, it's a hard, right? Because I got to, if you don't bounce off me, it dies, and then I'm going to go, oh shit, I need to come up with another question to keep the conversation going, right? But what I like is that I like this much more riffing kind of engagement where you're holding the conversation just as much as I'm holding it. I like that.
Yeah, we're bouncing off each other. I love it. That's great. Awesome.
Andrew, I need to ask you, of course, an end question, because I always do. Who Neil Benson, after the call, said, I wish you'd asked me this one. So I'm going to ask you it. Who do you think of when you think of the word punchable?
Punchable? Frank Hill.
Oh, Frankie, I hope you're listening to this. That's classic. For those that don't know, Frank is a consultant in Melbourne, Australia, brilliant photographer. He's a great guy. I would refer to him as a GC, and don't ask me to say that in full on air because I might have to change the rating on my channel. Anyhow, Andrew, thanks for coming on here. If people want to kind of check out with what you're doing around PCF, maybe get involved with that, how can they connect with you?
Sure, Mark. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And if you want to get in touch with me, it's my blog is 365life.com, LYF. And that's how you can catch up with me and get all the latest on PCF and all the other things I'm doing at the moment.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. I just want to tell you about a new show that I have, which is actually over on YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/NZ365guy, feel free to subscribe, hit the bell, and every time we go live, in fact, 1 hour before we go live on a live stream, you'll get notified. So we'd love you to come in, jump on the live stream, chat with us. It's always on Wednesdays, about 3 o'clock in Central US time, 4 p.m. in London, so kind of give you some bearing on that. But yeah, it's a live stream with Steve Mordew and myself on the Power Up live show. and you can ask questions and we will answer them. So I look forward to seeing you real soon on that channel. Until next week, have a good one. Bye.